Mystery cults were religious schools of the Greco-Roman world for which participation was reserved to initiates. In the 2nd century, the Christian apologist Justin Martyr identified them as demonic imitations of the true faith. Of course, mystery cults predate Christianity by hundreds, if not thousands of years. The famous Greek philosopher Pythagoras was himself an Orphic priest. Around 530 BCE, he relocated to southern Italy, where he founded his own mystery school, in which initiates were sworn to secrecy and lived a communal ascetic lifestyle. He chose the pentagram as the symbol of his esoteric school. Esotericism is the study of the truth which lies beyond the veil of illusion. By reading between the lines of ancient myths, initiates can unlock the secrets of the universe. Conversely, exoteric knowledge is more superficial and suitable to be imparted to the public. In most ancient religions, gods were as ambivalent as the elements and as capricious as people. We all know water is precious but dangerous. It can sustain or destroy. A knife can be used as a tool or a weapon. Good and evil are relative concepts. In the Bible, God committed genocidal atrocities such as the deluge and the obliteration of Sodom and Gomorrah. Even Jesus didn't always speak and act so kindly. He claimed he hadn't come to bring peace, but a sword. He once walked into the local temple and cast out all the merchants and moneylenders and their tables. The world is full of dukkha, that is, misery, sorrow, and pain. As Christians began to proselytize, they had to reconcile the existence of evil and suffering with an omnipotent God. So God was described as omnibenevolent, while Satan was chosen as the scapegoat to blame for all possible evils and misfortune. The Greek word daemon means spirit, not demon. The Sanskrit word deva means deity, not devil. In ancient Greece, when a spirit behaved, it was called agathodaemon, or good spirit. If it misbehaved, it was called kakodaemon, or bad spirit. The Proto-Indo-European etymology of daemon and deva is related to the English verb divide and refers to the act of dividing and allotting destinies. As Christianity and Islam expanded throughout Asia, Africa, and Europe, they came into contact with the so-called pagan religions, which were labeled as evil. Shiva is one of the principal deities of Hinduism and is regarded as the patron god of meditation and art. His name means auspicious, but he's also known as the destroyer because every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. The iconographical attributes of Shiva are the snake and the moon, which symbolically shed their old skin to start a new phase, the axe and the trident, which can sever the shackles of attachment and rip through the veil of illusion, the drum and rosary beads, which mark the passage of time and the repetition of history, the ashes, as a reminder that physical life is impermanent, and the third eye, providing vision into deeper realms of existence. The ancient Iranian prophet Zoroaster simplified the pantheon of Indo-European gods into two opposing forces, Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu, thus giving rise to the very first dualistic religion in the world, which inspired the exoteric narrative of Abrahamic religions. Neoplatonists theorized that the universe knew a primordial harmony, but that a cosmic disruption yielded a second evil dimension to reality. They did not believe in an independent existence of evil. They compared it to darkness, which exists only as the absence of light. So evil would simply be the absence of good. This rational model inspired Manichaeism and Kabbalistic cosmology. Manichaeism was a major religion founded in the 3rd century AD by the Iranian prophet Mani. He taught an elaborate dualistic cosmology describing the struggle between a good spiritual realm of light called Zervan and an evil material realm of darkness called Ahriman. In the Kabbalah, the bright side of the tree of life is that of the Sephirot, and the dark one is that of the Caliphate. Through an ongoing process, light is gradually removed from the world of matter and returned to the world of light, whence it came. Manichaeism spread throughout Asia and Europe until the 7th century, when it was persecuted and stamped out by both Christianity and Islam. The Paulicians, who blended Christian elements into a Manichaean worldview, formed in Armenia and spread to Anatolia in the 9th century, triggering the Church's war on heretics. In China, Manichaeism survived until 1370, when it morphed into the White Lotus movement. The lily, water lily, and lotus flowers are universal symbols of purity and light, as they symbolically emerge from the mud and murky waters of ignorance to reach the light of wisdom. Caowan Temple, located in Fujian, is the only extant Manichaean temple in China. An inscription in the temple's courtyard urges the faithful to practice purity, light, power, and wisdom. The statue in the shrine portrays Guanfo, meaning light Buddha, and comprises traits of Mani and Pangu, the Taoist demiurge. Pangu emerged from a cosmic egg in a non-dual, formless universe and proceeded to separate yin and yang with a swing of his giant axe. By holding yin and yang overhead, he initiated the formation of space and matter and went on to separate the elements with his hammer and chisel. When Pangu died, his body dissolved through an alchemical process and eventually coagulated into land masses, oceans, clouds, and all kinds of phenomena and life forms. Dissolve and coagulate is a medieval alchemy quote, which is to say that nothing can be built until we make space, breaking the old. The first step in the pathway to the Philosopher's Stone is nigredo, which means putrefaction or decomposition. In Chinese philosophy, yin and yang make up a number of opposites, such as yin dian and yang dian, which are positive and negative energy, yin tian and yang guan, that is, cloudy sky and sunshine, and yin jian and yang jian, which translate to netherworld and world of the living, respectively. In Tibetan, yam means female, while yab means male. The design of two interlocking spirals, representing the complementariness of yin and yang, is called Taiji-tu and is featured in the South Korean and Mongolian flags. Every object and living being has two opposing aspects. Even enlightened beings may have two opposing personality states. Besides acquiring equanimity and calm, they may take on the form of wrathful deities in order to help people transform negative mental factors into wisdom and compassion. These teachings of psychological shock belong to the so-called tantric tradition known under the Sanskrit names Mantra Marga, or incantation path, and Vama Marga, or left-hand path. It is a counterintuitive mode of worship and spiritual practice that is not only heterodox to standard Vedic injunction, but extreme in comparison to prevailing cultural norms. It is about rejecting societal convention, questioning dogmas, breaking taboos, and using sex magic. It is called left-hand path because meditation is usually done facing the east, so the bright midday sun will be shining on the right, and shadows, which are associated with darkness, will be cast to the left. That said, the word Vama also means enjoyment, as well as woman, since both are greatly valued by Vama Marga practitioners, and the left-hand side is usually associated with femininity. In Western esotericism, the left-hand path has been associated with Satan, which is derived from the Semitic root word Satan, meaning opponent or adversary. However, an even older Indo-European etymology may sound a lot more edifying. The Sanskrit prefix sat means true and virtuous, and is cognate with the Chinese term shen, meaning spiritual or divine. The Sanskrit word satya indicates truthfulness and consistency, and the Chinese term sengxian refers to a demigod or holy man. The Sanskrit term sampajanya, which is cognate with the Japanese satori and Tibetan sheshin, means full awareness. Last but not least, Hinduists often refer to their religion as Sanatana Dharma, that is, the eternal path. Needless to say, the Christian Church viewed Satan as the embodiment of evil and death. During the Middle Ages, the Inquisition alleged that various heretical sects and secret societies performed evil rituals in the name of Satan. In the subsequent early modern period, belief in a widespread satanic conspiracy of witches resulted in mass trials across Europe and North America. However, Satanists actually regard Satan as the Lord of all life forms on earth. Therefore, they feel compassion for all beings trapped in the physical plane. They strongly believe that every plant, animal, and human should be respected, except when it poses a danger to one's safety. Those who misconstrued the figure of Satan thought of Satanism as a source of hate and violence, whereas no Satanist leader has ever advocated unjustified offense or aggression. Conversely, most crimes against humanity have been perpetrated in the name of God or Jesus. Satanists chose Satan as the ideal adversary against the evil carried out by Christians and the bigotry surrounding the church. In his pamphlet called Common Sense, The Anglo-American philosopher Thomas Paine wrote, "The most detestable wickedness, the most horrid cruelties, and the greatest miseries that have afflicted the human race have had their origin in this thing called revelation or revealed religion. It is better, far better, that we admitted 1,000 devils to roam at large than that we permitted one such impostor and monster as Moses, Joshua, Samuel, and the Bible prophets to come with the pretended word of God in his mouth and have credit among us." End of quote. Freemasonry has attracted considerable criticism from the Vatican. Several popes have considered Masonic principles irreconcilable with the doctrine of the Church. Freemasonry actually consists of a fraternal organization that traces its origins to the fraternity of stonemasons, who studied geomancy so as to harmonize their constructions with the surrounding environment, but were also well versed in esoteric symbolism, so they could create meaningful architectural designs for posterity. The 9th century King Alfred the Great held stonemasons in high esteem and had them build a network of fortifications, a new drainage system, and several roads throughout southern England. His work was completed by his grandson, Athelstan, in the 10th century. Regarded as the greatest king of England, Athelstan summoned leading figures from faraway lands to his councils. From the 11th to the 15th centuries, the English construction industry became too strictly regulated, and operative masons became ever more speculative or philosophical, so that stonemason guilds transformed into fraternal organizations open to members who were more interested in esotericism than architecture. In Freemasonry, the basic degree system known as Blue Lodge reflects the 3 grades of medieval craft guilds, from apprentice to journeyman or fellowcraft, all the way to master mason. The military order of Solomon's Temple was founded in Jerusalem in 1119 and headquartered on the Temple Mount above the Temple of Solomon. The order's members, known as Knights Templar, protected Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land. With their military mission and extensive financial resources, the Knights Templar built several castles and churches in Europe and the Levant. They met envoys and travelers from Persia, India, and China, and learned about exotic religions and philosophies. They also visited ancient pagan sites in the Middle East, such as the Temple of Balad Gabal in Byblos and the Temple of Pan in Banias. In London, Temple Church was built by the Knights Templar in the 12th century as their English headquarters, named in honor of Solomon's Temple. When the Holy Land was invaded by the Mongols and Egyptians, King Philip IV of France, deeply in debt to the Knights Templar, took advantage of their downfall, accused them of evil devil worship, and had many of them burned at the stake, including their last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay. The Knights Templar were persecuted in Italy and Spain too. Some of them fled to Scotland, where they founded the town of Temple and built the Rosslyn Chapel. Others fled to Germany and England, where they joined the Knights Hospitaller of St. John. Several of them, conversant with esotericism and alchemy, joined lodges of speculative masons. Among the earliest representations of the alchemical great work was Rebis, the divine hermaphrodite, a reconciliation of spirit and matter, depicted as half male and half female, inspired by the Hindu androgyne called Ardhana Rishvara, representing the union of opposites. Just like Pangu put yin and yang in the sky, so Rebis was represented with the moon and sun above its head. Rebis was usually portrayed on a globe and had bat or bird wings. In Hinduism, another hermaphrodite was Naigamesha, the goat-headed deity of procreation and children. A similar allegorical being in medieval Europe was called Baphomet, and was strongly associated with the Knights Templar. Baphomet represented alchemy and the equilibrium of opposites. The troubadours combined the names Baal, the ancient Semitic god, Fo, the Chinese name of Buddha, and Muhammad, the founder of Islam, to arrive at the name Baphomet. John Dee was the court advisor to Queen Elizabeth I until her death in 1603, and spent much of his time on alchemy, divination, and Hermetic philosophy. The Elizabethan and Jacobean eras represented the apogee of the English Renaissance, rife with science, art, and magic. Between 1614 and 1617, 3 anonymous manifestos were published in Germany. The first one, called The Fame of the Brotherhood, was translated into English by the Welsh philosopher and alchemist Thomas Vaughan in 1652. The manifesto caused excitement in England by declaring the existence of a secret order of alchemists and mystics who were preparing to transform the intellectual landscapes of Europe. They were known as the Invisible College, or Higher College of the Rosy Cross, and lay the foundations of modern Freemasonry. One of the earliest members was Inigo Jones, the first person to introduce the classical Greco-Roman architecture to Britain. He created buildings such as St. Paul's Church in Covent Garden and the Queen's House in Greenwich, which inspired the design of Masonic temples. He also became famous as a costume and set designer. His dramatic performances, called masks, inspired the ceremonial aspect of Masonic rituals, as well as the psychodrama used in black masses. Another early member of the Invisible College was the English physician Robert Fludd, best known for his compilations of occult philosophy. One of the most prominent members from 1630 to 1662 was Samuel Hartlib, a German-British polymath whose aim in life was to further knowledge by conversing with scientists, artists, farmers, and mystics, including Elias Ashmole, who published a few books on alchemy, and John Hayden, who wrote the theomagic text called the Temple of Wisdom. In the late 17th century, the Invisible College began to circulate their ideas through meetings at literary salons and coffee houses. They sought to curtail the political power of organized religion, which had caused so much suffering in the previous centuries. In 1717, the English members of the Invisible College met in London, and their leader, Anthony Sayer, founded the Premier Grand Lodge of England. About 40 years later, German and Polish members met in Wrocław, Poland, and their leader, Hermann Fichtold, founded the Order of the Golden and Rosy Cross. In the first half of the 18th century, minor lodges sprang up all over Central Europe and Great Britain, as well as the Grand Lodges of Ireland, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Virginia, and Scotland. In rejecting exoteric Christianity, some Freemasons took influence from paganism, Gnosticism, Judaism, and East Asian religions. Most Masonic lodges required their candidates to declare a belief in a supreme being, without endorsing any particular religion, except for the Swedish Rite, which became based on Christianity. In the 19th century, some British lodges, such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, were devoted to the study and practice of the occult, including the Kabbalah and sex magic. They inspired a few lodges in the United States, especially the Order of the Eastern Star and the Mystic Order of Veiled Prophets of the Enchanted Realm. The oldest and most important secret student society in the United States, named Skull and Bones, was founded in Connecticut in 1832 and was modeled after a Masonic lodge. Freemasons believe in brotherly love, relief, and truth, and practice charity on a regular basis. Freemasonry describes itself as a beautiful system of morality, veiled in allegory, and illustrated by symbols, drawn from both the Knight Templar and from the tools of stonemasons, mainly the square and compasses, the level and plumb rule, the rough and smooth ashlars, and the trowel. Masonic initiatory rituals mostly revolve around the construction of Solomon's Temple. Hiram I, king of Tyre, supplied Solomon with trees for the construction of his temple, and sent over a skilled craftsman named Hiram Abiff. The demon Asmodeus was invoked to aid in the building process. The temple was completed in 957 BCE, and the Ark of the Covenant was placed in its Holy of Holies. Several gods were worshipped there, above all Yahweh and his consort Asherah, but also Baal and Zedek. The temple's porch featured two huge pillars, whose capitals bore carved lilies. The first-degree tracing board depicts a Masonic hall. Its black and white checkered floor denotes the dual quality of the universe, as well as the good and evil in human life. The pillar on the left, known as Yakin, is surmounted by the sun. It represents strength and can be equated with a pillar of mercy and masculinity from the Kabbalistic tree of life. The pillar on the right, known as Boaz, is surmounted by the moon. It represents beauty and can be equated with a pillar of severity and femininity. The pillar in the middle represents wisdom and harmony, and is surmounted by either an all-seeing eye or the blazing star. The all-seeing eye is associated with the third eye of Shiva. The blazing star, which is now a pentagram, was originally a hexagram, whose anthropomorphic representation is the androgynous being Ardana Rishvara. The hexagram, also known as Shatkona, is made from two interlocking triangles. The upper stands for Purusha, or young energy, the lower for Prakriti, or yin energy. In the center of the tracing board is also a ladder, signifying divine ascension or access to enlightenment. In Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, The triastrimsa is the realm of enlightenment, connected to Earth by a ladder of 33 rungs. The 33-degree structure of the Scottish Rite was finalized by the Masonic author and Master Mason Albert Pike, who studied Indo-Aryan mythology in the mid-19th century. Besides 3 being considered the perfect number, 33 is the number of vertebrae in a normal human spine, and the duration in years of a complete lunar solar cycle. In the 20th century, several demonic organizations were founded, such as Fraternitas Saturni in Germany, Ordo Templi Orientis, and the Order of Nine Angles in Britain, and the Church of Satan and the Temple of Set in America. The acronym Vitriol is very popular among Freemasons and occultists alike. It means visit the interior of the earth, purify yourself, and find the hidden stone, which is another way of saying, look within yourself for the truth. The older aphorism, Nothi Sauton, was inscribed in the Temple of Apollo in Delphi, Greece. In 1651, the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes used the Latin version Nosce te ipsum, which he translated as read thyself, in his famous work, The Leviathan. Satanists usually quote it as know your true self, and equate it with the Vedic statement, I am Atma Brahma, meaning this self is God, in that one's true self and the ultimate reality are one and the same. Finally, one of the greatest differences between Christianity and Satanism is that in the former, someone's fate and salvation depend on their faith in God and God's forgiveness, often through the church's system of penance and indulgence, while in the latter, we must hold ourselves responsible for our actions and create our own destinies. In this respect, Satanists closely resemble the Hindu and Buddhist philosophers who spoke about karma, which literally means action. Karma is every choice we make each minute, day after day. Phala, or vipaka, is the consequence of our behavior, which will be experienced sooner or later in the future.